They laughed when he drew the sword. The Draxar Confederacy had never seen a weapon so absurd, a curved sliver of polished metal, its edge unlit by plasma, its hilt wrapped in fraying silk, to a warrior caste bred in forges of quantum fire, who carved battle hymns into starship hulls with blades hotter than supernovas. It was a punchline, a relic, a toy. But the human stood anyway, his boots anchored to the deck of the Iron Shogun, the katana's tip grazing the obsidian floor. The Draxar warlord, 4 arms folded over a chest plate etched with the skulls of conquered species, hissed through augmetic jaws. "You bring a knife to a war of gods?" The human said nothing. He had no need to. The sword spoke for him, or rather the silence around it did. No hum of containment fields, no crackle of harnessed stars, just cold, dead steel forged from the corpse of a neutron star, its edge sharpened in the gravity well of a black hole, a blade that had no business existing, let alone biting. The Draxar didn't know that yet. They didn't know how humans carried ghosts in their steel, how their ancestors had turned desperation into doctrine. To the Confederacy, honor lived in the spectacle of annihilation, in weapons that screamed their power. But humanity's strength had always been quieter, coiled in the spaces between what was possible and what was necessary. The warlord ignited his plasma katanas, their cores bleeding ultraviolet fury. "Your death will be a footnote," he snarled, and the chamber roared with the laughter of 1,000 cyborg throats. The human tightened his grip. The sword remembered. Chapter 1. The air tasted of ozone and ash. General Ryker Voss stood atop the skeletal remains of a watchtower, its ferrocrete bones jutting into a bruised sky streaked with the contrails of dying starships. Below him, the colony of New Kyoto sprawled like a corpse picked clean by vultures, cratered streets, collapsed hab modules, the rusted husks of mechs half buried in irradiated soil. 10 million souls had lived here once. Now only the wind spoke, howling through the ruins like a mourner who'd forgotten the melody of grief. Voss tightened his grip on the scabbard at his hip. Tsukuyomi. The blade's name slithered through his mind, cold and serpentine, a relic from a bloodier age, forged from neutron star alloy. Its edge shimmered faintly even in the gloom, as if the metal remembered the fury of its birth. His ancestors had wielded it to carve empires. Now it hung heavy against his thigh, a ceremonial absurdity in an era of plasma artillery and singularity bombs. A flicker of movement in the rubble, Voss's hand twitched toward the hilt, muscles coiled, before he recognized the silhouette, Lieutenant Mara Cole, her lean frame wrapped in a scavenged envirosuit, its visor cracked like a spider's web. She climbed the shattered stairwell without sound, a ghost in pragmatic form. "They're here," she said, her voice stripped of inflection. No greeting, no preamble. Words were rationed here, like water and hope. Voss didn't turn. He'd known the moment the Draxar fleet pierced the system's outer defenses. The air itself had thickened, charged with the static of their ion drives, and the scar along his ribs, a parting gift from a Draxar plasma blade 6 years prior, itched like a buried lie. "How long?" he asked. 3 hours, maybe 4. Mara stepped beside him, her breath fogging the visor. The Iron Shogun's leading the blockade. Scanners show Kralvk's sigil on its hull. A muscle flexed in Voss's jaw. Kralvk, the butcher of Cerberon. The Draxar warlord had a taste for theatrics, burning cities to cinders, broadcasting the screams of governors on open channels, collecting the skulls of rival commanders, and plasma katanas, twin blades forged from stellar cores, their edges hotter than a star's heart. "He'll demand the duel," Voss said. Mara's silence was answer enough. They watched the horizon, where the Draxar fleet would soon crest the curve of the dead planet's terminator. Voss's thumb traced the monarchy of Tsukuyomi, the blade's curvature worn smooth by generations of hands. His father's hands. His wife's, Elena. The memory struck like a shrapnel burst, her laughter in the gardens of old Kyoto, sunlight threading through her hair as she sparred with practice blades, her movements a haiku of grace and violence. "Honor's not in the steel, Ryker," she'd teased, disarming him with a flick of her wrist. "It's in the hand that holds it." Then the Draxar raid, the nursery ablaze, her body found in the rubble, her fingers still curled around the hilt of a broken katana. Voss closed his eyes. The wind sharpened, carrying the metallic tang of distant storms. The command bunker hummed with the arrhythmic pulse of dying machines. Officers hunched over flickering hollow screens, their faces gaunt under the jaundiced glow of emergency lumens. A child's drawing, a stick-figure family beside a smiling sun, was taped to a bulkhead, edges curled and charred. Voss strode past the hushed clusters of soldiers, their whispers dying in his wake. The Blade Master. They still called him that, though he hadn't earned the title in battle. Not with Tsukuyomi. Not since he entered the comms chamber. The hollow projector at its center cast sickly green light over Admiral Sato's ashen face. "They've sent terms," Sato said, voice crackling through static. A feed of Earth's orbital defenses flickered behind him, a skeletal ring of cannons, half destroyed, clinging to the bones of dead warships. "Let me guess," Voss said. "Surrender or annihilation. Worse, Kralvk wants a duel. Single combat, you against him." The room constricted. Voss's pulse thudded in his ears, a war drum rhythm. "Coward," part of him hissed. "You've been waiting for this. If you refuse," Sato continued, "they glass the colony. If you lose, they glass it anyway. And Earth after." Voss leaned against the console, the edges of Tsukuyomi's scabbard biting into his hip. "And if I win," Sato's laugh was a dry rasp, "they'll withdraw. For now." A hologram flared, Kralvk's challenge, recorded in the jagged glyphs of Draxar battle cant. Voss didn't need translation. The warlord's sneer transcended language. "Come, little human. Let us see if your toy sword can scratch my armor." "It's a farce," Mara said from the doorway. She held a diagnostic pad. Its screen fractured. "The quantum edge. It's a myth. You know that." Voss didn't turn. He'd known since the day she'd scanned Tsukuyomi in the Kurosawa's labs, her face pale under the sterile lights. "The alloy's inert," she'd said. "No energy signatures, no quantum fields, it's just metal, like the blade Elena had died holding." "Does it matter?" Voss said. Mara stepped closer, her voice a blade in the dark. "You're betting humanity's survival on a prop. If Kralvk realizes, he won't. And if he does." Voss stared at the hologram. Kralvk's forearms crossed over his carapace-plated chest, his plasma katanas sheathed in contempt. Draxar psychology was a paradox. A warrior culture that revered honor, but conflated it with technological supremacy. To them, a sword was a symbol of weakness, a human sword, a punchline, but symbols had power. "The edge isn't in the blade," Voss said softly. Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then where?" He didn't answer. The shuttle bay reeked of coolant and fear. Technicians scurried like roaches from the shadows, avoiding Voss's gaze as he approached the dropship. Its hull was scarred from 100 re-entries. The human flag on its flank faded to a ghostly blue. Mara intercepted him at the ramp, clutching a field kit. "I'm coming." "No, you need someone to activate the hologram." She gestured to Tsukuyomi. "The quantum edge doesn't turn itself on." Voss hesitated. The blade's illusory glow, a trick of refracted light and nanotech, had been Mara's idea. The Draxar expect spectacle, she'd argued months ago. Give them a show, make them doubt. Now her jaw was set, defiance hardening her gaze. He saw Elena in that look. "Stay behind me," he said. The dropship shuddered as it broke atmosphere, its hull groaning under the strain. Voss sat in the cargo hold. Tsukuyomi laid across his knees. Mara crouched nearby, her fingers flying across a holopad, as she synced the blade's holographic emitters. "It'll last 10 minutes, she said. "After that, the nanobots overheat." 10 minutes is enough. Is it? He didn't answer. Through the viewport, the Draxar flagship Iron Shogun loomed, a jagged obsidian monolith, studded with plasma cannons, its hull etched with the crest of Kralvk's dynasty. Smaller ships swarmed around it, their silhouettes arachnid and cruel. The comms crackled, a Draxar voice, guttural, and layered with mechanical harmonics. Approach and be scanned, human. Your vessel reeks of desperation. Mara's hands stilled. Ryker. He stood, sheathing Tsukuyomi. The hologram's activation switch burned in his palm like a stolen secret. When this is done, he said, tell the men to evacuate the colony. Her eyes widened. But the terms change. The docking clamp seized the dropship with a metallic scream. Voss stepped into the airlock, the blade heavy at his side. Elena's voice, faint as starlight, honors in the hand. The hatch opened. The Iron Shogun's arena stank of ionized metal and alien sweat. Draxar warriors lined the grated walkways, their forearms clasped behind armored backs. Faceless helms tilted in unison as Voss approached. Kralvk waited at the center, a mountain of blackened ceramite and contempt. His plasma katanas already drawn, twin blades, crackling with contained supernovas. General Voss. The warlord's voice boomed through Vox grills, dripping with mockery. Or should I say, Blade Master. Laughter rippled through the Draxar ranks, a sound like grinding glass. Voss stopped 10 paces from Kralvk. His finger hovered over the hologram switch. Now, he thought. The blades of earth and fire circled. Chapter 2. The arena breathed. Its walls pulsed with the Iron Shogun's mechanical heartbeat. Vents hissing steam that coiled like serpents around General Ryker Voss's boots. Draxar warriors lined the grated catwalks above, their faceless helms angled downward, forearms clasped in ritual stillness. The air reeked of ionized metal, and something sharper, ozone, perhaps, or the static charge of plasma blades, starving for blood. Kralvk loomed ahead, a titan armored in onyx ceramite, his twin katanas crackling with contained supernovas. The warlord's helm split vertically, retracting to reveal a face that was more machine than flesh. Scar tissue sinew, fused with augmetic plating, eyes like smoldering coals, set deep in a skull grafted with coolant pipes. He grinned, teeth filed to needles. A sword. Kralvk sneered, the Vox grill in his throat mangling the word into a guttural laugh. You honor us with comedy, human. Voss said nothing. His thumb found the hologram switch hidden beneath Tsukuyomi's hilt, its edges biting into his palm. 10 minutes, Mara had said. 10 minutes before the nanobots failed, and the blade's illusion shattered. 10 minutes to turn theater into truth. He drew the katana. The arena lights dimmed on cue, plunging the chamber into blackness. A murmur rippled through the Draxar. Confusion, anticipation, the rustle of armored limbs shifting. Then Tsukuyomi awoke. Light bled from the blade, cold and impossible, a cerulean shimmer that fractured the shadows. The hologram danced along the edge, particles of artificial starlight, swirling like galaxies born and dying in the steel. Voss felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon it, the Draxar's derision curdling into silence. Now, he thought, make them believe. Kralvk lunged, plasma katanas shrieking through the air, trailing arcs of incandescent fury. Voss sidestepped, Tsukuyomi humming as he parried. The blades met, neon fire against holographic ice, and the arena erupted in a shower of sparks. The warlord recoiled, staring at his weapon. The plasma edge flickered where it had kissed Tsukuyomi's glow, as if the hologram had leached its heat. Quantum edge. Kralvk rasped, more to himself than to Voss. The lie took root. Voss pressed forward, each movement a stanza from his wife's forgotten teachings. Feint left, pivot, strike high, the steps etched into his muscles like liturgy. Elena had danced this dance 1,000 times in the Kyoto dojo, her laughter trailing like cherry blossoms in her wake. You're too stiff, Ryker. A sword isn't a hammer. Now her ghost guided his hand. Kralvk's strikes grew frenzied, plasma blades carving molten scars into the deck. Voss wove between them, Tsukuyomi's light painting ephemeral wards in the dark. The Draxar warriors leaned closer, their rigid discipline fraying. One, a younger warrior by the tremor in his stance, reached instinctively for his own blade, as if to mirror Voss's motions. They're watching, Voss realized, not just the duel, the blade. He pivoted, letting Kralvk swing sheer past his ribs, and sliced Tsukuyomi downward in a silver crescent. The hologram flared, refracting light into the warlord's eyes. Kralvk staggered, roaring, and Voss lunged, not at the warrior, but at the reactor core glowing like a diseased heart beneath the arena's floor grates. The blade's edge passed through the grating, through the reinforced quartz shielding, through the pulsing core. Nothing. A heartbeat hung suspended. Then the hologram's light twisted, bending around the reactor in a prismatic cascade. The Draxar recoiled, shielding their eyes as the chamber filled with a sound like shattering glass. The core split, or seemed to. Alarms wailed. Klaxons throbbed. Kralvk froze, his augmetic eyes darting between Voss and the reactor, its holographic fracture spreading like cracks in ice. My ancestors, Voss said, the words ash on his tongue, used sharper toothpicks. The Iron Shogun screamed. The dropship, en route to New Kyoto. Mara found him in the cargo hold, staring at the blade. Tsukuyomi lay across his knees, inert, its hologram extinguished. The nanobots had failed at 8 minutes, not 10. He'd felt the light gutter as he fled the arena, the Draxar's confusion curdling into chaos behind him. Scanners show the Iron Shogun adrift, Mara said. Her voice was flat, but her hands trembled as she uncapped a medkit. Reactors intact. They'll have it repaired in hours. Voss didn't look up, and Kralvk, alive, angry. He closed his eyes. The taste of the duel lingered, burnt metal and adrenaline, the sour tang of a bluff called and survived. Mara knelt, dabbing an antiseptic-soaked cloth at the gash on his arm. The plasma katana had grazed him in the final moments, searing through armor weave and flesh. He hadn't felt it then. They believed it, she murmured. The quantum edge, the theater, they believed what they needed to. She paused. And you? The question hung between them, sharp as the blade between his hands. Did you believe? He thought of Kralvk's face as the hologram fractured the reactor. The moment of doubt, raw, human, mortal, in the warlord's augmetic eyes. It doesn't matter, he said. Mara's jaw tightened. She tore a bandage with unnecessary force. The Draxar are hailing us. All channels. They're demanding answers. Let them. Ryker. Enough. The word echoed. Too loud. Too final. Mara recoiled, the medkit slipping from her grasp. Voss stared at the scattered supplies. Gauze, sutures, a vial of morphine, and saw Elena's face in the debris. You're becoming them, her ghost whispered. All edges, no soul. He stood abruptly, the blade clattering to the floor. Prep the colony for evacuation. Kralvk won't honor the terms. And Earth? Earth is already dead. Nos New Kyoto colony. 47 minutes later. The wind had shifted. It carried voices now. Human voices. Frantic and frayed. As colonists swarmed the evacuation transports. Voss watched from the watchtower, his bandaged arm throbbing in time with the colony's dying breaths. Below, a child clutched a stuffed bear, as her mother shoved her into a dropship. The bear's fur was singed, one eye missing. Elena hated dolls, he remembered. She gave ours to the refugees from Proxima. General, Lieutenant Cole's voice, brittle with exhaustion. She climbed the stairs, her Enviro suit streaked with soot. The last transport leaves in 20, she said. You need to board. He didn't move. And you? Someone has to activate the colony's self-destruct. Delay the Draxar. A cold fist closed around his heart. You'll die. Someone has to. The words were his own, thrown back at him like a knife. Earth is already dead.
He turned. Mara's face was pale but resolute, her fingers curled around a detonator. For a heartbeat, he saw Elena in the set of her jaw, the defiance in her eyes. "Give it to me," he said. "No, that's an order, Lieutenant." She laughed, a hollow sound. "You don't get to die here, Ryker. Not after that stunt." He stepped closer. The detonator trembled in her grip. "Why?" he asked. Her gaze flickered to Tsukuyomi, abandoned in the dust. "Because the lie isn't finished." The comms in her suit crackled, a voice distorted but urgent. "Draxar fleet moving into attack formation. They're targeting the transports." Mara's breath hitched. "Go." He didn't. Instead he seized the detonator, his hand closing over hers. Her fingers were ice. "The sword was a lie," he said. "This isn't." She stared at him, uncomprehending, until he yanked the detonator free and shoved her toward the stairs. "Run." Orbital debris field. 10 minutes later, the colony's death bloomed on the dropship's viewport. A silent burst of light, beautiful and terrible. Mara sat beside him, her face reflected in the glass, tears cutting tracks through the grime on her cheeks. "Why?" she asked again. Voss studied the debris. Somewhere in that glittering graveyard was the watchtower, the stuffed bear, the ghosts of 10 million lives. "Honor isn't in the blade," he said. The comms console chimed. Draxar frequencies, flooded with chatter. Mara translated, her voice numb. "They're arguing. Traditionalists versus the mechanized clans. Kralvk's faction is demanding retaliation. Others," she paused, "others are discarding their plasma blades, switching to wood. They're calling it Bakken." Voss leaned back, the detonator's weight still burning in his palm. Elena's laugh, bright as steel. "Told you, Ryker, it's in the hand." Outside the stars burned cold, indifferent. Somewhere, a Draxar child reached for a wooden sword.
Chapter 3. The Draxar homeworld was a graveyard of gods. Ryker Voss stood at the edge of a derelict shipyard, its skeletal gantries clawing at a sky choked with acid yellow clouds. Below him, the ruins of a mechanized city sprawled, crumbling ziggurats of blackened steel, their surfaces scarred by plasma burns, and streets littered with the husks of discarded war machines. The air reeked of oxidized metal and something fouler, the sweet rot stench of cultural decay. Once this place had throbbed with the arrogance of a civilization that believed itself invincible. Now, it whispered. He adjusted the respirator mask clinging to his face, its filters straining against the toxic haze. Beside him, Lieutenant Mara Cole crouched in the shadow of a fallen dropship, her fingers dancing across a portable scanner. The device whined, its screen flickering with Draxar glyphs. "They're close," she said, her voice muffled by the mask. 20 clicks northeast, near the old forges. Voss nodded, his hand drifting to Tsukuyomi's hilt. The blade hung at his side, dormant, its holograms disabled. A prop again. A joke. "Just like you." Elena's ghost seemed to sigh. They moved through the ruins like ghosts, boots crunching over shards of brittle alloy. The Draxar had abandoned this sector months ago, when their civil war split the clans. Traditionalists, who now fought with wooden Bakken against Kralvk's mechanized loyalists. The irony curdled in Voss's throat. He'd shattered their faith in steel, now they slaughtered each other over splinters. A sound froze him, the rhythmic clack of wood striking wood, through a crack in a collapsed refinery wall. He saw them. Draxar warriors, their forearms stripped of augmetics, sparring with crude Bakken in a rubble-strewn courtyard. Their movements were clumsy, earnest, their carapace-plated bodies straining to mimic the elegance of human swordsmanship. At their center stood a young Draxar female, her chitinous armor painted with ash, a mourning ritual, Mara had said. She barked corrections in guttural Draxar, her Bakken flicking against a warrior's knee. "Too slow, the human strike begins here." Zira, leader of the traditionalist faction, supplicant, fanatic. Mara's hand gripped Voss's arm. "This is a mistake. They'll kill you the moment they realize the sword's a fraud." He shook her off. Stay hidden. The courtyard fell silent as he stepped into the open. A dozen Bakkans snapped toward him, wielded by warriors whose eyes burned with equal parts reverence and hate. Zira turned, her 4 pupils dilating in unison. Blademaster, she rasped, the title warped by her mandibles. She stepped forward, her Bakkan held in a passable imitation of a samurai's stance. You honor us with your presence. Voss said nothing. Up close, her armor was a patchwork of scavenged plating and frayed neural cables. The Draxar had always been hybrids of flesh and machine, but Zira's kind had torn out their augmetics, leaving puckered scars where interface ports once gleamed. Purists, they called themselves, children playing at primitivism. You shamed us, Zira said, her voice trembling. You showed us the lie of our strength. We wish to learn. He stared at her Bakkan. The wood was pale, unvarnished, still oozing sap where she'd carved it. A child's toy, a killer's crutch. Why? He asked. Her mandibles flexed. To be worthy. The word hung in the air, poisoned and fragile. Worthy. Elena had whispered it once, bleeding out in his arms, her fingers smearing red across his chest. You'll make them worthy. He unbuckled Tsukuyomi, letting it fall into the dust. Zira flinched. Pick up your blade, he said. Marred rain fell in greasy sheets, pooling in the crevices of the abandoned forge where Voss trained them. The air here was thicker, heavier, the stench of rust and coolant, clinging to the carcasses of half-built war machines. Zira's warriors watched in silence as he drilled them in the rudiments of footwork, their clawed feet slipping on oil-slick metal. The strike isn't in the arm, he said, parrying Zira's Bakkan with a rusted pipe. It's in the hips, the breath. She attacked again, her movements improving daily. The Draxar were fast learners, their quad muscle biology adapting to human techniques with terrifying efficiency. Voss saw it in their eyes, the hunger to replace one dogma with another. At night, he dreamed of Elena. She stood in the refinery courtyard, her skin fused with Draxar chitin, Tsukuyomi glowing in her hand. You're teaching them to hate themselves, she hissed. Just like you. He woke choking on phlegm, the respirator's filters clogged with ash. Mara was gone most nights, scouting Kralfk's movements. She left reports scribbled on scraps of alloy. Loyalist patrols increasing. They know you're here. Zira found him once during these vigils, her Bakkan clutched like a talisman. Your mate, she said, gesturing to Mara's empty bedroll. She does not trust us. She's not my mate. Then why does she stay? He had no answer. They came at dawn. Voss was drilling Zira on a catwalk above the forge when the first plasma mortar struck. The blast sheared through steel girders, sending Draxar warriors tumbling into the abyss. Kralfk's loyalists swarmed the compound, augmetics gleaming, plasma katanas screaming, their mechanized limbs tearing through Zira's purists like paper. Traitors, Kralfk's voice boomed through the chaos. He strode through the smoke, his forearms wielding twin plasma blades, and a rotary cannon grafted to his chest. You disgrace the Draxar Voss. You die beggars. Zira snarled, leaping from the catwalk, her Bakkan raised. Voss lunged after her, but a loyalist's plasma round grazed his thigh, searing through flesh. He fell, Tsukuyomi tumbling from his grip. The blade skittered across the floor, landing at Kralfk's feet. The warlord stared at it, then at Voss. This is your god. Kralfk's kicked cups Tsukuyomi against a furnace. The hologram switch activated on impact, the blade erupting in false starlight. A toy. A lie. Zira froze, her Bakkan inches from a loyalist's throat. She turned, her eyes locking on the glowing sword. On Voss. You lied. Her voice cracked. Kralfk laughed, a sound like grinding gears. He shamed you. You groveled to a fraud. The loyalist surged, disarming Zira. She stumbled back, her warriors faltering as the truth metastasized. Voss crawled toward Tsukuyomi, his legs screaming. Zira screamed, a raw, keening sound, and threw herself at Kralfk's. The warlord swatted her aside, plasma blades carving through her Bakkan, her armor, her left arm. She fell, clutching the smoldering stump. Finish them, Kralfk's ordered. The plasma cannon whined, targeting Zira. Voss moved, He didn't remember grabbing Tsukuyomi, didn't remember the hologram's glow or the loyalist's blade slicing his shoulder. He remembered Elena's voice, honors in the hand, and Zira's blood pooling black in the dust. The cannon fired. He tackled Zira, the plasma blast searing his back. Mara's voice echoed through the smoke. Voss, move. The forge exploded. They fled through the ruins, Mara half-dragging Voss, as Zira's survivors covered their retreat. The purists fought like demons, Bakken splintering against plasma blades, buying seconds with their lives. In the dropship, Mara welded Voss's burns while Zira bled out on the medbay floor. The Draxar female's breath bubbled through fractured mandibles. Why save me? Voss gripped her remaining hand, her claws dug into his flesh, drawing blood. You asked, why I stay? Mara muttered, suturing his shoulder. Ask yourself why she did. Zira's eyes dimmed, her grip loosening. Voss saw Elena in her face, not as she'd been, but as she'd become a shadow, a reflection, a debt. No more shadows, he whispered. Outside, the Draxar homeworld burned. Chapter 4. The void between stars had never felt so heavy. General Ryker Voss stood in the dim glow of the dropship's viewport, watching the Draxar homeworld shrink to a smoldering ember behind them. The planet's atmosphere, burned amber and sickly green, its continents scarred by the Civil War's feverish wrath. Zira's Bakken lay across his palms, its wood grain, still stained with her blood, blackened and brittle, like the truth he'd forced her to swallow. He ran a thumb over the splintered edge, remembering how it had shattered against Kralfk's plasma blade, a toothpick against a supernova, he thought. And yet here we are. Mara's footsteps echoed in the ship's hollow belly. She paused beside him, her reflection fractured in the viewport's scarred glass. Earth's next, she said, her voice stripped of its usual steel. Scans showed Kralfk's armada already cutting through the Sol system's outer defenses, their ion trails glowing like festering wounds in the dark. Voss nodded, his silence a language she'd learned to parse. She lingered, as if waiting for a confession, before retreating to the cockpit. Her absence left the air colder. The Bakken trembled in his grip. No more shadows, he'd vowed to Zira, but the past clung like a second skin. Elena's laughter in the Kyoto dojo, the nursery's ashes clotting his lungs, the hologram's lie curdling in Kralfk's augmetic eyes. He pressed the Bakken to his forehead, its rough grain biting into flesh. Honor wasn't in the blade, or the hand. Then where? Mara's Ort's orbital defenses were ghosts. The skeletal remains of battle stations drifted in lazy orbits, their cannons scavenged for scrap, their hulls picked clean by decades of despair. Voss's dropship wove through the debris field, its engines muted to a whisper. Below, the planet's night side flickered with the faint pulse of dying cities. Los Angeles a gutted carcass, Shanghai drowned under radioactive tides. The Draxar fleet hung above the Terminator, a swarm of obsidian daggers poised to strike. They touched down in what remained of New Kyoto. The colony's ruins had been rebuilt into a fortress of desperation. Trenches gouged around collapsed HAB modules, artillery cobbled from rusted mech parts. Children handed plasma rifles with mismatched power cells. Colonel Sato met them at the perimeter, his uniform hanging loose on a frame, eroded by hunger. You shouldn't have come back, he said, eyeing the Bakken at Voss's hip. They'll glass us just to watch you burn. Voss surveyed the ragged lines of soldiers, human and Draxar defectors, their Bakken lashed to battered armor. Zira's followers, purists, fools. Where's the Kurosawa? He asked. Sato snorted, scuttled. Reactor's been rigged to overload. A last laugh for whoever boards her. Mara stiffened. That's our play. Voss turned. Her gaze was flint, striking sparks off the dark. The holograms, she said. We replicate Tsukuyomi's trick, scare them into retreat. He almost laughed. The sword's illusion had bought a moment, not a victory. But fear was a seed, and Kralfk's loyalists had fertilized it well. Rig every ship in the graveyard, he said. Make them glow. Sato blinked. With what? Hope, Mara said, already striding toward the comms tent. And bullshit. The Kurosawa's corpse floated in high orbit,
a gutted leviathan. Voss floated beside it in a patched EVA suit, the Bakken tethered to his thigh. Behind him, a dozen derelict warships shimmered with holograms. Tsukuyomi's quantum edge replicated 1,000-fold, their false light painting the void in sapphire fractals. Mara's voice crackled in his helmet. Charges set. Detonation on your mark. He stared at the Draxar armada. The Iron Shogun loomed at its heart, Kralf's sigil pulsing crimson on its hull. 6 years of butchery, condensed into a single ship. Elena's ghost would have loved the irony. Do it. The Kurosawa erupted. Fusion fire tore through its ribs, igniting the holograms in a chain reaction. Light bled across the dead fleet, blades of cerulean energy ripping through the dark. For a heartbeat, the Draxar hesitated. Warriors bred to venerate technology, now confronted with a phantom they couldn't comprehend. Then the Iron Shogun fired. Plasma barrages lanced through the holograms, scattering light like broken glass. Voss's breath fogged the visor. Of course, Kralf Sate had learned. The warlord's laughter boomed over the comms, warped by static into something insectile. Pathetic, he snarled. Your lies die with you. Mara's voice cut through. Voss, fall back. He detached the tether. Let the Bakken drift. Let the void take him. But the Draxar defectors surged first. Zira's warriors in stolen shuttles, their Bakken lashed to hulls like pennants. They rammed the Iron Shogun's thrusters, their screams short and bright over the comms. The flagship listed, its shields flickering. Voss kicked toward the breach. The Iron Shogun's corridors stank of burnt wiring and alien sweat. Voss moved through the smoke, the Bakken in hand, its way to comfort. Draxar loyalists lay dead at intersections, their plasma katanas still glowing in rigor mortis grips. The defectors had paid in blood to carve this path. He found Kralf in the reactor chamber, his augmetic limbs fused to the control console. The warlord turned, twin katanas flaring. Blade Master, he spat. Come to die with dignity. Voss hefted the Bakken, come to teach you its meaning. Kralf Sate lunged, plasma blades howling. Voss parried, the wood searing but holding, reinforced with Earth's last scraps of neutron star alloy. Mara's final gift. They circled, strikes measured, the reactors hum a funeral dirge. Elena's voice, too stiff Ryker. He pivoted, the Bakken cracking against Kralf's wrist. A plasma blade clattered to the floor. The warlord roared, striking wild. Voss ducked, swept the Bakken low. Wood met ceramite, and Kralf's knee buckled. Honor's not in the blade, Voss said, disarming the second katana, or the hand. He pressed the Bakken to Kralf's chest. It's here. The warlord laughed, blood flecking his augmetic jaw. And what is here human? A lie. A joke. A choice. Outside, the holograms died. The Iron Shogun's alarms wailed. Mara's voice, calm as deep space. Reactor overload in 90 seconds. Kralf's eyes widened, a flash of fear, unalloyed and human. Voss stepped back. Your ship. Your death. He left the warlord screaming curses. The Bakken abandoned on the floor. Earth's dawn was gray, the sun smothered by ash. Voss stood at the edge of Elena's grave, a simple marker in what had once been their Kyoto garden. Mara approached, her boots crunching over dead leaves. The Draxar are retreating. Kralf's dead. He nodded, placing Zira's Bakken beside the stone, and the Confederacy, demanding parley. There, intrigued by the Bakken, a breeze stirred the ash. Somewhere a bird sang, a ragged, stubborn sound. Mara hesitated, then pressed a hand to his shoulder. It weighed less than the sword, more than the world. He smiled. Send them a message. What? Toothpicks, he said, walking toward the light, are still sharper.